Hello again. So this is part two of my Cinema to Pack reopening day over here. And second up on the menu was I Saw the TV Glow. A film that also admittedly I had no idea what I was getting into over here. I knew that it was an A24 film. I saw some really interesting teaser material. Just a few frames from the film itself that they were showing in teasers was more than enough to catch my curiosity. Justice Smith as well plays the main role in the film. And he seems to be quite on an interesting role lately. So that's always exciting to see. And also I discovered that Emma Stone herself was also producing this film. So all these things, even though I knew nothing about the plot itself, was more than enough to pique my curiosity and to cement this as a must-see day one. And I'm also blown away that this is a rather low-budget $10 million film that is just a whirlwind of creativity and chaos like you wouldn't believe. This film features some absolutely unhinged creativity, let me tell you. So to go over the synopsis as briefly as possible, because as always, I don't want to give away any juicy details, because you really should check out these films for yourselves. I'm not here to rob the surprise for you. But in as vague terms as possible, these two loners, they kind of meet each other in high school, and they bond over this late night TV show that's called The Pink Opaque. It definitely gives off these Buffy the Vampire Slayer or even the Twilight Zone vibes. It's definitely this lo-fi fiction creation that they made here. In any case, these kids are so enraptured by this TV show. It's literally their obsession. And as we're going further along in the story, it's possible that this TV show is bleeding into reality. Question mark. I think that's more than enough info for you guys. Let's just leave it at that as far as the plot is concerned. Right off the bat, the lo-fi art direction of this film is simply phenomenal. I had a pretty strong suspicion that it would be the case, even from the teasers that I saw as they mentioned previously, but nothing prepared me for the level of wowness that I would have experienced in this film, literally tenfold of what I could have ever expected. And once again, I remind you, it is on a shoestring budget. Oh my god, where to begin? There's a wealth of super old VFX that are integrated into the film, and even though they're really weird and uncanny, especially in our modern day and age, they somehow work super well in this very weird, chaotic way. You're gonna see some really experimental VFX over here. This might be the weirdest film we'll see all year long. And on top of all that, there's this very VHS film grain quality about it all. Everything about this film is lo-fi to infinity and beyond. Truly, I Saw the TV Glow is just exploding with mood. All the 90s aesthetics are absolutely nailed. There's so many fascinating props, and all the set decorations are just loaded with details to look at. This is so easily noticeable when our protagonist Owen is walking through this carnival that is popping with colors and details from every direction. There's a bar later on where we find ourselves in for a relatively short moment, and it is just plastered with all sorts of stickers and graffiti and details to just lose yourself in if you even choose to delve in. The fun center as well, which is ironically named because, as you'll see when you get to that point of the story, there's nothing really all that fun about it. It's also just statured with all sorts of colors and details and things to look at. Even something as mundane as a vending machine is just exploding and glowing with personality. Then there are these like on-screen overlays of these pink writings that are super creative and cute. I really like how they support the narrative elements and the vibe of that moment. And of course, as I'm sure you may have noticed by now from any stills or bits and pieces of the trailer you may have seen, the lighting in this film is absolutely bonkers. You'll be blasted with super saturated colors flashing on and off from one end of the color spectrum to the other throughout the entire film. It is a rather kaleidoscopic and overwhelming experience, but it totally works. The look of this film is just too cool for school. Damn near every frame of this film is simply a marvel to look at. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year, this would be going toe-to-toe with some of the Goliaths we've seen this year, which once again, for such a low-budget film, is a monumental achievement. Though putting aside the visual aspect, which is absolute aces, the sonic side of the film is just as powerful. There is a simply sensational shoegazer alt-rock soundtrack in this film. Alex G absolutely knocked it out of the park on this one. You'll be barraged by this layered wall of lo-fi sound to just drown yourself in. It may be overwhelming for some folks, but as far as I'm concerned, I thought it was just delicious. And also, there are a bunch of really surprising musical appearances in the film, either through needle drops. I think there was some Caroline Polachek playing at one point in time, and we do have a few cameos, most notably from Phoebe Bridgers, who did make a very memorable appearance. And there's also Fred Durst, of all people, who plays Owen's father in the film. That kind of blew my mind. And as a final musical anecdote for this film, and once again without going into too much spoiler detail, but the main villain, if you will, of the Pink Opaque is someone who's known as Mr. Melancholy, which in my mind I instantly went to Smashing Pumpkins, me being a giant Smashing Pumpkins fan, and indeed we did have a cover from a classic song from Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, Tonight Tonight, which is a very appreciated and tasteful surprise. In any case, as you can tell, the soundtrack for this film is an absolute banger from start to finish. Now, if I did have to be critical about the film for a brief moment or two, I do find that as great as the performances were from our two main protagonists, their emo teenage depressing selves was getting a little unbearable at one point in time. Maybe just because like I went through that phase and I grew out of it and I don't want to go back to it ever again. Been there, done that. Thank you, goodbye. I am joking a little bit here, but seriously, they did get a little bit annoying, and it does feel like they were kind of rehashing a lot of the same ideas and dialogues on a few occasions. I'm curious if other people feel the same way, but it did feel a little bit like a broken record, especially in the later segments of the film, which incidentally, I do feel that the film starts to lose steam at the end of it. There's one extremely long monologue that starts to over-explain itself and kind of outstay its welcome. I did notice a few people in the crowd as well were kind of like eye-rolling and cringing like, oh my god, okay. But even with those criticisms, I do really appreciate the way the film ends. I don't think it's going to satisfy everyone. I think some people might actually be disappointed with the ending, but I thought it was a really interesting choice, as melancholic as it may have been, which is totally appropriate in so many ways given the subject matter at hand. And finally, I don't want to go into specific details, but I do have to bring up this criticism. There's this moment where there's a bit of aging used on one of the characters, and frankly, it just looks bad, like really bad. I guess we can be relatively lenient and forgiving for this fault because it's just firing on all cylinders and then some in every other facet of the film. But still, I literally did have a visceral ooh reaction. It was not a very flattering moment in the film. Anyways, this is a crazy movie that takes a swing in every single direction all at the same time, it feels like. It may be a little overwhelming and kind of cringe at times, but it is nothing if not unforgettable. So I think this is easily anywhere between 8.5 out of 10 up to a 9. Yeah, this seems to be another hit for A24. These guys really do know how to find amazing talent, don't they? So with all that being said, wishing you and your loved ones nothing but the best. Take care and talk to you soon.